I'm a big comic book fan, so anything DC or Marvel related, I am obsessed with. Um, and we'll get to this later in the presentation, but if I could give you one tip out of everything financial aid related, would be to ask questions because you don't know what you don't know, and there is no question that is a dumb question. I know in my office we love when students come ask questions because that means they're watching their financial aid, the process, and just making sure they know what they need to do. And then if Miss Keisha is on, I will let her introduce herself.
Yes, I am on, and I'm driving, but I'm still on. But my name is Keisha Woodis, and I am the Assistant Director of Client Services at Norfolk State University. I have been with Norfolk State University for the past 3 years, I think, at this point. Yeah, this 21, 3 years, last February. And it's been a pleasure doing that. Also, just a little bit about
Must be in a bad area.
Okay, I think that
you have taken that.
Oh,
say it again.
You went out for a minute, but go
freezing?
ahead. You're back. You should be good now.
Am I freezing? Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm still moving. Instead, what I'll say is one interesting thing about me is I'm probably one of those few people who enjoy both Star Wars and Star Trek. I like them both. I'm not crazy with either one, but I like both storylines. And as far as giving a tip, the one tip that I give all students that come across my pathway, number one, please read your email. Most schools use your student email account as your official notification. And I can't emphasize enough for checking that and making sure that you are responding to whatever your institution is sending you in a timely manner. So I'm going to go ahead and give it back over to Andrew so that I can get in the house.
Yes, awesome.
That was good, Keisha. And I'm going to add, I don't know if you said check your spam folder. I get a lot of students who say they didn't get the email and then they check the spam folder and it's there. So check your entire email. Just go to their separate folders or, use the search tool to check all of the folders that you have. All right, Andrew, I'm going to be quiet. You can go ahead.
Okay, awesome. All right, so go to our next slide. So we're going to cover a few different things today. We've got those listed here, the student aid report. If you make corrections to your FAFSA, we'll explain what the verification process is. And there's some situations where you may have a change in your circumstances and how to address those. We will talk about how to compare different award offers that you get from different schools, how to accept your aid. And then if you're thinking, okay, I've got a little bit of money, I'm in financial aid, what can I do to get some more? So we're going to go through that. So I think it's a small enough group where if there are questions, we've got a chat or the Q&A function. So if you want to type those in there, I know Tierney's going to be watching those, and she can stop us as we're going through, and we can address that because it might be something for everybody that they could benefit from hearing. So first, let's talk about the student aid report. If you're talking with the financial aid office, we do like acronyms, abbreviations, whichever they're called. So you may hear us say SAR. So when we say SAR, we're talking about the student aid report. So in the last webinars, if you're able to attend, we talked about submitting your FAFSA, and once it's submitted, the student aid report or SAR is sent to the student, and then a college gets a copy of your FAFSA. But on that SAR, it's got all of the information that you've provided on your FAFSA. So I encourage students to, once you get that, go through, double check everything and make sure that it's accurate. One of the things that you'll notice on your SAR is what's called the expected family contribution, or the EFC. You'll hear that word used. That is the index from the Department of Education that helps colleges determine how much financial aid you can receive. So if you are looking at your SAR and you realize, I don't have an EFC on there, that means there's something that needs to be fixed on your FAFSA, but the SAR will explain what's wrong with the FAFSA and what you can do to fix it. The SAR is also going to tell you if you've been selected for what's called verification, and we'll talk about a little bit more what that is in just a minute. The SAR is not going to show how much financial aid a student's going to receive. You will get a separate notification from the colleges that you've applied to, and they'll let you know how much financial aid that you will be receiving. All right, so how do you get your SAR? So it's typically available about 2 weeks after you've submitted your FAFSA. Whatever email address is on your FAFSA, a link's going to be emailed to that address with the link to the SAR. But if there's no email or if it's invalid, then you'll get it via the Postal Service. And it says mailed issues. Yeah, there could be an issue with their social security number or a signature on the FAFSA. So again, like I said, once you get it, definitely take a look at every single line, make sure all of it's accurate, because again, what's on the FAFSA does affect how much financial aid you'd be receiving. But if you notice that there is something that's wrong, that can be fixed. So I think on the next slide, so this is just, excuse me, a screenshot, an example of what the SAR will look like. So it's multiple pages. This is just an example of the first page. So it's got student's name, address information on the top left, and then on the top right, it's got that expected family contribution, that EFC. Let's see. All right. Sorry about that. All right. Apologies. I hope you don't hear my dog, but he is in the background. So yeah, there's the data release number. So if if you're wanting to give a school access to your FAFSA to make any changes, if you haven't put their school code on the FAFSA, you can give them this DRN number, and they could go in and make any correction that you would need. Let's see. Yep, the data submitted talks about the EFC being 0. I'm seeing if there's anything else on here that we want to talk about. So it talks about the different types of financial aid towards the bottom of this that you could be eligible for. And it talks about the award information could change from college to college because some, institutional scholarships would be based on the specific college. Okay. All right, so let's go to the next one here. Give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. All right, so if you do need to make corrections to your FAFSA, if you go back to studentaid.gov and log in with your FSA ID and password, you're going to see some screenshots like this. So this is a situation where the FAFSA has been processed successfully. And then in the blue down here, you got a few different options. You can see that you can view or print your SAR. And then if you need to make FAFSA corrections, that's the link that you're going to want to select there to get started with that process. So again, mistakes can be costly. There are a few common mistakes that we see pretty often with a FAFSA. Incorrect social security numbers. So make sure you got a copy of your social security card or something that that you can refer back to make sure you get that in correctly. A lot of times students, with the help of their parents helping them do the FAFSA, they may accidentally put their parent information as the student. So that's a common mistake we see. When trying to decide which parent is appropriate to put on the FAFSA, determining which, especially if it's a divorce or separation situation, figuring out which parent to put on there and talk to your financial aid office because they can help guide you to make sure you put the correct parent on there. Putting the incorrect tax and income information on there, that can also be an issue, as well as tax filing status. So we encourage people to use the data retrieval tool when they're eligible on the FAFSA, because that's going to pull all of the tax information from the IRS. Otherwise, if they're not able to use the data retrieval tool to bring all that from the IRS website, they do have to manually put that in. So putting in the incorrect tax filing, incorrect household size, and the number in college. And then one of the most common ones we see is that the FAFSA just hasn't been signed. So it is an electronic signature on your FAFSA, and then your parent, if you're a dependent student, as long as they've got their FSA ID, they can log in and sign electronically as well. But the delay in fixing these can cause a delay in financial aid being awarded. All right. Tierney, do we have any questions yet so far? I don't mind stopping.
I don't see any. Let me check the Q&A box.
Okay.
No questions yet, so you're doing a great job.
All right. Awesome. Okay, so we talked about making corrections, and if you do need help with that, again, you can talk to your financial aid office. They'll be happy to walk you through making those corrections, because we want to make sure that you have the right amount of financial aid that you're eligible for. So a few minutes ago, we talked about on that SAR, the student aid report, you can see if you're selected for what's called verification. So the Department of Education selects roughly about 30% of students to go through this process. They say it's a random selection. And then some colleges themselves decide to verify all students. But so if on the SAR, if you don't see that you're selected for verification, still follow up with your college to see if you're selected by them, and if you need to provide any documents. But the financial aid office is going to contact you either through email is the most common, or there's typically a student portal where you can see the documents that are needed, as well as instructions on how to get those documents and provide them to the financial aid office. So it's important to regularly, not just one time and then wait a few months, but regularly check your email for updates about this, because financial aid can't be released to a student's account until the FAFSA verification process is completed. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the common documents that verification requires. One is income tax returns. So we talked a few minutes ago also about using the data retrieval tool if you can, and that's again bringing all the information from the IRS website directly into the FAFSA. Because if you do that, if you're selected for verification, you shouldn't have to submit a tax return. But if you're not able to use it, you can submit an income tax return to the financial aid office. Another common request is W-2 forms. One thing about the income tax returns, just as a good rule of thumb, make sure that they're signed. That's how to make them acceptable. And then the college will also have some forms for you to submit. They want to know how many people are in the household, how many people are in college, because again, all of that information must be right on the FAFSA so that you get the correct amount of financial aid. Also, high school and college transcripts are some pretty common items requested for the verification process. So helpful tips, again, sign and date all documentation. Make sure you keep copies of everything. So once you send it to the financial aid office, just document when you sent it, how you sent it, in case there's a question of if it's received, then you can come back and say, I sent it on this date at this time, and I sent it from this email address, for example. Also double check to make sure you're meeting deadlines. That's super important, because there are some types of financial aid that are on a first come, first served basis. So the people who are the earliest doing the FAFSA, and then the people who are earliest completing the verification process, you want to make sure that you get the most out of your financial aid that you can, and that you're applying for all that there is available. And again, check your email, communicate regularly with the financial aid office. As I mentioned, as my tip, ask questions. We'll talk a little bit more later about how to find some additional assistance. But yeah, ask questions, because that's how you find out information, how you make sure you meet these deadlines and get everything in on time.
Hey, Andrew.
Yes.
Just going back to the student aid report.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I was trying to annotate, but obviously I don't know what I was doing. So anyway, I was trying to circle some things.
Okay. Yeah.
But anyway, there's a comment in the chat that says the SAR, well, it says I believe it will, but it is true, the SAR, well, if there's an EFC, we'll tell you if you're Pell eligible, and the estimated Pell award may not be a final, but it's just an estimate. Can you speak
Yes,
on that a little bit?
I believe both the SAR and before that, when you submit the FAFSA and it says, congratulations, it's been successfully submitted, I know towards the bottom of that page, it tells you how much you could be eligible for in federal Pell Grant. It tells you how much you could be eligible for in federal direct student loans. But yes, so you do get an estimate. But so it's very important then to follow up with your financial aid office to make sure that they have that information as well, because the final will be from them saying, yes, you are eligible for this amount in Pell Grant, you are eligible for this amount in loans. But yeah, I believe they both do include an estimate on the student aid report and the FAFSA confirmation page. Yep. Good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. And so let me think here. So on the FAFSA, it uses a specific tax year's information. So we are about to start the 2021-2022 school year this August. And that year's FAFSA looks at 2019 tax and income information. So a lot obviously has been going on in the world. And if your financial situation has changed drastically since the 2019 tax year, if 2020 looks much different, and maybe it's substantially lower, then I would encourage you to reach out to your financial aid office and ask them about what's called a professional judgment process. What this does, it allows the financial aid office to look at more of a current financial situation. And if looking at, in this case, if looking at 2020 income benefits you with maybe some additional Pell Grant, then the financial aid office could approve this professional judgment, and your FAFSA would be based on 2020 income instead of 2019. So loss of income is just one example. If parents have separated or divorced after the FAFSA has been filed, or if a parent has passed away since the FAFSA has been filed, that's also a situation where a professional judgment could be beneficial for the student, because basically they would remove that parent's income off of the FAFSA. And then also if there's unusually high medical expenses that have been paid out of pocket, that could also be a reason to look into the professional judgment process. So if you go to your financial aid office and mention professional judgment, they're going to know exactly what you're talking about. And then you can ask them those questions there to see if it would benefit you. Right. So I think this is where we were going to pause if there are any other questions. Otherwise, I think this is where Keisha.
Let's see. Let me see, no questions. It doesn't look like. There was another comment about the timing of award notifications going out. To my knowledge, most of them start going out in April, but it depends on the institution or college. In this comment, it says late February or March or early April. Maybe the ones I'm most familiar with are in April, but then the community colleges are sometime in the summer.
So
Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I'll speak from my experience and let Keisha do the same. So I worked at a 4-year institution a couple of years ago, and we started getting our earliest award notifications out in December for the next school year that started in August. And I'm at Reynolds Community College now, and we are about to start sending the award notifications out for the 21-22 school year. So I think it really depends on the school. I would say as early as December, and then community colleges, I'm sure have started sending those out by now as well.
Was that in Virginia early December? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, that was in Virginia.
Wow.
Yep.
That's pretty good. Keisha, what about Norfolk State?
Well, I was going to comment on the December date. With prior year being put into effect, where students are able to fill their FAFSAs out earlier, the only thing that prevents a school from really doing awarding is their system setup. So if they can get it done, they can award. Norfolk State typically attempts to get award notifications out in March at the latest. Sometimes, I think last year we were February, but we try, February is the earliest, and then March is the latest, but we definitely try to get ours done within that time frame between February and March. We don't ever do ours that early in December. I wish we could, but unfortunately we do not.
All good.
Okay. So Keisha, I think this is you, award notification.
Okay, so now that you have completed all of your steps, yay, you got all your documents in, you've done everything it is that you were supposed to do. So now it's time for the institution pretty much to award you. What we do, we use the information from your student aid report to determine the federal, state, as well as institutional aid that you qualify for. Some programs do require a separate application at Norfolk State. We do not require a separate, well, yes, we do. I lied. I apologize. If you are a transfer student, you do have to submit a separate application for the 2-year transfer grant. But for the majority of the other programs that we offer, Commonwealth, VGAP, VCAN, none of those require an application, and you are automatically awarded based on, as Andrew mentioned, the timing of your completion of your FAFSA and or your verification. So colleges will create an award package for you. An award package is simply just the aid that you're going to be receiving for that particular school year. Most schools will notify you via email. However, I know in our instance, we will, for first-time freshmen, we do send out an actual letter still in the mail, as well as an email to you to let you know what your award package is. And as we already discussed about when award notifications begin, it literally varies by school. Every school is different. So one school may do it earlier and one may do it a little later. But typically, in terms of 4-year schools, at least by my experience, they usually try to have them done by May for decision day. Andrew, you can go ahead.
Oops, I got froze on me.
So coming soon to a financial office near you, we will start having what's called a college financing plan as opposed to an award letter or award package, just so that we can be a little more descriptive in what it is that we're trying to do in your financial aid package. I think that a lot of times students do get confused. They call it reward and some other things that, well, it's not a reward, it is an award, but it is a plan for us to show you how to cover the charges for your financial aid, for your charges, tuition fees, room and board, and so on and so forth. You can go ahead.
And Keisha,
Yes, ma'am.
Can I be real that
yes.
I can see why students and parents might get confused. I mean, you get so many, documents, especially when you're a first-time student, and they're called so many different things. We did a review for the state, the last couple of years on these award notifications, but you've got some calling it award letters, award notifications. It can get confusing. And then you may get it, an email and also mail, and they look different. But one thing we try to do as a state is kind of mainstream it so that the information is the same, how it's organized is the same. It might be formatted a little differently. And so you might get, if you get something in the mail and something online, it's probably going to be the same thing. It just might look a little different. So
that's correct. That's absolutely correct. I know for a fact our award letter looks different than, let's say, an ODU. I've seen theirs. Theirs is completely different from ours. But the basic information that each school is providing is the same. And those are the key points that you just kind of want to look at. And we'll talk a bit about that in just a few minutes. Andrew, this is your award notification. Yeah. You're going to go ahead and review this one.
Yeah, I sure will. So this should look similar to any community college within the state, any of the 23 community colleges. So this this notification, you'll see it doesn't necessarily have, actually there isn't the exact amount that you'll receive. We give you instructions on where to find this in your student portal. One of the benefits I think of the student, following the View Your Aid instructions is a lot of our community college students go part-time. Maybe they don't go a full-time load. Because of that, that's going to change the amount of financial aid that you can get. So it's really important to follow these steps so you can see, okay, if I'm only taking 6, 7 credits, how much am I actually going to get? Will it fully cover my classes? Am I going to owe? So that's one of the reasons why it is set up like this. And then we just give some other instructions on when to expect refunds, registering for classes, all of those next steps we try to tie up in this award notification. And then on the next page, I've got it broken down. So once you do follow those instructions to view your financial aid award, then we have it broken down by the year, and you can see we've got it broken down by the term as well to try to make it a little bit more transparent. And then you can see on the right side here at the bottom of that screenshot, it's just saying that your aid may change if you enroll in fewer than 12 eligible credits, and explains how students can view based on actual enrollment.
Andrew, I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry. Where for the award description, for example, where it's federal Pell Grant, it's in blue. Are those clickable? Can you click on that?
So I can't now.
Right.
Yes, but they are clickable, and so it breaks down.
Okay, it says click each hyperlink for additional details. Yes,
yeah. That's
nice to see. If you get something in the mail, it's probably going to be maybe 3-4 pages, and reference the page that information is on. But that is nice to see. I was just wanting to point that out. And I will say, just from my knowledge with community college award notifications, they're standardized.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going to a community college, and I mean, you've only, applied to community colleges, your letters or notifications are going to look the same.
Yep.
Which is, that's helpful too. And Andrew, just want to, I can't remember. I think we'll talk about this.
Okay.
But does Reynolds do automatically award loans?
We do not. No, I'm glad you said that.
Okay.
So many of the community colleges do not do that because the costs are so much lower, especially for in-state students. If a student wants a federal direct student loan, they have to complete an additional loan request form to initiate that.
Right. So I just bring that up because I've also seen that notification. And so if you don't qualify for any grants, you'll get another email that says you didn't qualify for grants, but you can still apply for a federal student loan, and here's how you do it. So
yeah, exactly.
That's all. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. And even though it's like really tiny, this is an actual award letter that is for one of our students. As you can see, we kind of break ours down a little bit differently than the community colleges. We do indicate what the cost will be for a full year. At the top where it says direct costs, and then we also break down our indirect costs. And if you've been on a prior call, we talked about the cost of attendance budget. And so we actually delineate what the cost of attendance budget is. And this is for a Virginia in-state student. At the bottom, we separate out the gift aid versus the loans, and we do automatically award loans on all of our students. And you, as a student, would have the option to either accept or decline either all or a portion of the student loans that are being offered. That Andrew had mentioned with his award notification, we do also break it down by semester. And I didn't put the second page on here, but the second page does have more instructions in terms of where to look for it online, how to get to loan information in terms of promissory notes and counseling and that sort of thing. But that is actually a part of it, but I only included this piece of it for this benefit, for this particular program. One thing that I do want to mention is that when you are looking at your award notifications and you're trying to compare, one of the biggest things that I would say that you want to look at is you want to look at how much the direct costs are versus how much financial aid you're actually receiving. In this particular case, this particular student is receiving, I'm sorry, it's so small.
It's total, you want total aid or gift aid?
The total gift aid, right?
Total gift aid for the year is $15,967.
Okay, so the gift aid is basically the money that does not have to be repaid. And if you take that deducted out of your direct cost, the difference of that is basically what you would need to cover as far as either out of pocket, additional scholarships, or if you decide to take out a loan, that is another thing, that you can compare that with as well. But when you're looking at this, you definitely want to look at the complete package against your direct costs, because that's what you're actually going to be billed for. And I think a lot of times students and parents get confused about the cost of attendance versus what they're actually being charged for their tuition fees, room and board if you decide to stay on campus. Any questions about the award notifications so far?
I don't see any questions, but I have a comment for myself. Just that because now you know that community colleges, or most community colleges, don't automatically offer loans, but 4 years do, just to pay attention to that.
Right.
Your amounts are going to look different wherever you go, to be honest, but just make sure you see, and they've done a good job of breaking down the gift aid, the free money, and then identifying those loans. Just make sure you pay attention to those amounts. And like Keisha said, you can decline that, you can reduce it, so that you don't come out with a lot of loan debt in the end.
Right. Right. Okay.
Awesome.
All right, so when you're comparing aid offers, you want to compare amounts and types of awards. The questions that you want to ask is, does the award package include grants and scholarships only? As with community colleges, that's what you're going to see. You're not going to see loans. Does the award package include a combination of grant, scholarship, work study, and loans? In our particular award letter, if you did have additional scholarships or work study, it would be at the bottom under other aid. One thing also you want to keep in mind as it pertains to work study is work study does not count against your direct costs. So when you're looking at your aid package, you have to earn that money before it is actually applied. It's not directly applied to your bill, okay? Work study has to be earned. It's a job that you get. So just like with any job, you don't get a paycheck until you do the work. And same thing with work study. It's to help with additional costs that you may have. Could be just expenses with your personal miscellaneous. And I just want to emphasize that only because sometimes students, and I don't know if in the past, I can't remember, it's been many years since I looked at an award letter for myself from back in the 90s, whether or not that was actually deducted out of the balance or deducted from your direct cost, but it certainly is not. So when you're looking at your package, you have to take that away and say, okay, this is not part of that. And look at your grant, scholarships, and loans. Now, work study is a great thing to get. You should do it if you can, but I just want to emphasize the fact that it does not count against your direct costs. Understand the terms.
Keisha,
Go ahead.
Sorry. we have some questions about work study.
No problem.
And you made some good points. I remember years ago when I was in college, my friends would have work study, and I was like, man, I get work study. And I think I thought they would have to use that money to pay toward their bill.
It doesn't.
But that's not the case, right? And so it may not bring down your bill, especially if you're not going to use it to pay off your bill, because you can use it, like you just said, for other like miscellaneous things. Someone asked, let me scroll up a little bit. They wanted to know more, like, how does work study work?
Okay.
That's funny. And I think you explained it, but I also have another question underneath that says, do you apply for it? So can you say anything else more about work study?
Absolutely. When you complete your FAFSA, you can indicate on your FAFSA whether or not you're interested in work study. Okay. So that would be the first layer of possibly receiving work study. Now, keep in mind, each school's process is going to be different. But in general, if you mark on your FAFSA that you're interested in work study, most likely you're going to be awarded if funds are available. This is also one of those funds that are similar to other ones where it's first come, first served. Okay. But typically you don't have to apply for it per se. You do, well, at least at Norfolk State, we automatically award federal as well as Virginia work study to students as until we run out of money. Okay, we just automatically do it if the student is eligible. Keep in mind too that work study is somewhat need-based, and you do have to have need in order to receive work study. And we talked about what need means in a prior workshop. Basically, your cost of attendance minus your EFC equals your need. If that's greater than 0, or it's probably maybe more than that, but greater than 0, then you have at least some level of quote unquote need. But like I said before, it does differ from school to school. At Norfolk State, we don't require you to apply. However, we do have what's called a wait list. And so if we have students who decline their work study, which some students do, and then we find that we have money left over where we can go back and award, then we do that as well. Just a little bit more about that. I know you do have to find a job on campus. Every school, again, is different. With our school, you actually have to locate a job. You have to apply for the job. You have to do all of those same steps that you would do if you were going to apply for a job on the outside, except it's going to be within the university. Did I answer your question?
I think so. Yeah, I think you did. I mean, did you say, I think you said you can decline work study. You don't have to accept it.
You can decline work study.
We have 2 people who say they have a question. I can't see it. They just hit whatever button to say they have a question. And I kind of, if y'all don't mind, want to try something new. And Anna, I believe it is, Rim, I'm going to say. I'm going to unmute you to see if you can just ask your question aloud. Anna?
Hi. How does potential federal legislation for giving loans impact us?
Okay, are you talking about the fact that they have suspended payments on the loans?
The 10,000 loan, the loan forgiveness.
So
okay, go ahead, Andrew.
I think if I'm understanding the proposed legislation, that's for people who have already borrowed a loan and owe that amount. I don't think there's anything in the legislation for people who are considering borrowing in the future. Right. Yeah, that's how you understand it as well, Keisha.
That's correct. And everything that I've read, it's not going to be for anyone in terms of future borrowing. It's for people who actually have loans as of the date that they decide that they're going to do the forgiveness. So if you don't have any loans, it's not gonna impact you at all, actually.
Yeah, right. It doesn't apply,
and that's not something
to students.
Yeah, it's not going forward. But anyway, go ahead, Tierney. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say it doesn't apply to new students. So this is your chance, since you be new, fresh, and no college debt, to make the right decisions. For me, I'm excited about that. I didn't make the best decision, so I'm excited about that forgiveness. But this is your opportunity now up front to make those good decisions about, how much that you incur, and if there's a way to get other scholarships or pay out of pocket and set up like a payment plan, which is something we'll talk about in a couple of slides, then do that. Don't take all or any of the loans if you don't have to.
If you don't have to.
So, we have one more person, and I think it's just Al. I'm probably going to pronounce the last name wrong, Lee, and I'm going to unmute you to see if we can hear from you. Okay, Al?
Yeah, during the application process, I'm considering state because my parents been living in Virginia, but now that I'm going for college, they're thinking about moving to DC. Does that affect my next year FAFSA application for in-state tuition?
Okay, so in terms of domicile, if you're okay, I can explain it from my school's perspective. In terms of domicile, if you as the student apply now, and you'll have Virginia domicile for now. However, if you move and parents are no longer Virginia residents, then that could pose a problem going forward.
Yeah, Keisha, I can
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. You're the one.
Yeah, I can answer the domicile part of that, but that does bring up another question for me. I think I'm saying it right, Al, that basically if your parents move, you have a 1-year grace period from the move date to still receive in-state tuition. And after that, then if you can show that because they moved, you still stayed and maintained your residency in Virginia, which is sometimes difficult if you're a dependent student. But if you can show that, and it all depends on the college, what they're going to want to see, if your parents move to DC and you can show that you only visit, during the holidays, you haven't changed over any of your personal documents, and it also, they'll look at how long you were in Virginia. If you were born in Virginia, then they can definitely see that, your parents just decided to move and you didn't want to go with them. But it's a 1-year grace period from that move date. But Keisha and Andrew, I myself even get confused at how the FAFSA is like. Do they look at the information you put on your FAFSA to determine, if you're in state? Like, what happens if you're actually out of state, on your FAFSA, but somehow you're in state on your admissions application? Has that ever happened?
Yes. We get the opposite quite often, actually. For us, we actually include in the application process the domicile, the Virginia domicile application. So they have to complete that part. And now that I'm really thinking about it, I'm wondering if, well, I don't want to say that. I'll back off of that one. But at any rate, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But at any rate, yes, we actually include the domicile application as part of the application process. And so if the student can show on that application that they are in state, that's what we go by. We don't go by the FAFSA in terms of determining if the student is in state or out of state at all. It's all in that application that they complete when they apply for the institution.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And then we do have one more question. There's this last question, then we can keep going. It says, so the net direct cost is the amount that is due that I'll be paying, right?
That is absolutely correct. So the direct cost is your actual charges that you're going to be billed for by the institution. The other indirect costs are things that we're estimating that you may have to pay and how much you may have to pay. But yes, the net direct cost is what you want to look at in terms of how much you're responsible for. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
All right, and then we can move forward.
All right, so we stopped at understanding the terms and requirements of the different aid types or the different types of financial aid. Just keep in mind, number one, that when you have to, your free aid versus your loan requirements, there are repayment requirements for such things such as like your student loans, that's obvious, but there's other programs out there such as oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Hold on one second. The Teach Grant is what I'm thinking about. Okay. The Teach Grant. So as you progress in your schooling, if you're a prospective teacher, the Teach Grant is something that also has additional requirements that you have to maintain and certain things that you have to do upon leaving, or it could turn into a loan. So just kind of keep in mind that, okay, is there anything else I need to do? Is there anything else I need to know concerning these different the types of aid, maintaining certain GPAs. So like, for instance, we have students who receive our presidential provost scholarships. They have to maintain a certain GPA. With the Commonwealth grant, in our institution, we have a GPA that you have to maintain as well. VGAP, same thing. So these are also some things that you want to consider as you move forward to know, well, how do I keep it? Okay, I have this wonderful grant, it's covering most of my charges. How do I keep it? Finally, of course, your aid package will change from college to college. As Andrew mentioned, they only package grants for the most part and scholarships if they offer them, but they don't package loans. Other institutions may offer additional institutional aid. It really depends on the funding that the school has, and it will be different from school to school. The one thing that will stay the same no matter what is your federal aid. So your Pell Grant, your student loans will be consistent throughout whichever school you attend. Those things will stay the same. But other things, like I said, state aid, different things like that is based on availability of funding and could be different based on various variables. Okay.
Right.
Terry,
And
like
Keisha, I'm just gonna. How do you know?
Because I saw you unmute.
Oh, I'm like, you can see me? Oh my gosh, it's on my camera. You don't want to see me right now. Okay, sorry. Scared me. What about, that threw me off. Oh, I was just going to say, I get questions all the time from students and parents that, you know, what they got at one institution is different from another institution, but there are different variables in that, like available, you know, funds, the student population. You've got more needier students at one institution than you do at the other one you apply to. And so each institution has to come up with their own awarding schedule or award schedule. And so that can be different from institution to institution. So maybe you get $5,000, I'm making this up, at a state, in-state grants at one institution, but the other you only get $2,000. That can happen. So don't be alarmed. And, you know, if you need it, I mean, that's something you look at when you're comparing these award offers, and maybe that'll help you make your decision.
Right. And another thing that I think when you are looking at the award offers is understanding, particularly with scholarships that the institution is offering, is whether or not they're renewable. Can I get it again? You know, if it's just for 1 year, or is it something that I can continue to receive throughout my entire school career? Because I can tell you some of them aren't. Some of them are just to get you in the door. They're recruitment tools, and they may or may not be renewable from 1 year to the next. So that's also something you want to consider as you look at your offers. We already talked about comparing the aid offers, looking at your net price versus the amount of aid that you have to determine basically if you need to either come out of pocket to make a payment plan or to use loans. And if you do decide to use loans to make up the difference between your net cost and your gift aid, for instance, you want to make sure you're taking the least amount that you need. You do not want to take the full amount. Trust me, I am a walking cautionary tale as it pertains to these loans. And, you know, I try to encourage students all the time that if you need the money, and I said need, not want, but if you need the money, then you should use it for what you need it for. But you should definitely take the lowest amount of money that you actually need. And sometimes that might just be your books. It might be, you know, you might need a couple, you know, $100,000 a couple $100 to buy books. I wish, right? And so it might be expenses that you need for gas. It could be money that you need for your childcare expenses. I mean, you know, I don't know who's on the call, but, you know, it could be anything that's school related that you need. As one of my counselors says, and this is a little bit of a funny, it's not for bundles. It's not to get your nails done. To buy the Birkin bag, okay? So you know, so
sometimes those refunds could pay for a Birkin bag. I tell you that. But don't take it, you guys.
Right.
I'm with you, Keisha. You better preach cautionary tale. Do not take
Don't do it.
Remember this. Okay, you heard on this webinar, April 6, 2021. Do not take more loans than you need, because
you need. That's
you
right.
know, you get that grace period of 6 months after you graduate, and that's for the student loans. But after that, I mean, you have some options, but it's just going to keep on adding up and adding up.
Yes, it does.
Unless you are becoming a doctor, maybe we've got some doctors on this webinar, that's great. It'd be hard to pay that back. I mean, your payments could be, it depends on the type of payment plan you're on, but like I've seen payments in the thousands, and that's a monthly payment. That should scare you right there. So yeah, definitely. Don't do it. And then I've even heard doctors, say it's hard for them to pay it back because, of course, they're going to look at your income and use that to determine how much, you can pay in your monthly payments. So, yes, listen to us. If you took nothing else from this webinar, don't take all those loans. It's not free money. So. Okay, and we only have, like 3 or 4 slides left, just so everyone will know.
Okay. And real quick, I don't want to scare you to the point where you're afraid to take any loans. It's nothing wrong with doing it if you need it. I had a student that came to me recently that was really in dire straits need, and was just adamant that he just wasn't going to take a loan. And I had to convince him, okay, you need to take this loan because, you really are in dire straits. You really do need it. And if you didn't, I wouldn't even have encouraged you. But at any rate, so we can move forward. All right, so
Tisha, so can I say, you want to, it's a difference between federal and private loans.
Yes, there are.
So
yes,
we talked about this in the previous financial aid webinar, so we don't go into detail. But you want to take the federal student loans over applying for private loans because there are more benefits to doing that. Your repayment options are better, interest rates are lower. And so if you must take a loan, make sure you're doing federal student loans.
Right. All right, so when you're looking at your awards and you're deciding on what am I going to accept for your acceptance offer, you take your free money first, obviously. And in most cases, you don't even have to accept that. Usually, at least at our institution, it's accepted for you. We just assume that you want the free money. You want to also look at your earned money. So you're talking about your federal or institutional work study funds that we already talked about. That's money that you're able to earn. And then on the last end of that, you want to look at your borrowed money. So you're talking about your federal subsidized and unsubsidized loan. And if I can add to that, what I would say is that you want to start with your subsidized loan first, because the subsidized loan is interest-free while you're in school. So if you only need a couple, like $1,000 or $2,000, use your subsidized loans. Don't take the unsubsidized loan because it will incur interest during the time that you're in school. So if you think about being in school for 4 years at 3 and whatever interest rate it is right now, that's something that's going to actually build up on you. And so whatever amount you borrow is obviously going to be way more by the time you actually graduate from school. Again, we already talked about you don't have to accept all of your aid. You can reduce your loan. You can decline it. You can decide that you don't want anything. You don't have to take any of the aid that's offered to you. But we're specifically talking about the loans. And you also want to explore scholarships outside of the college to help reduce the need for borrowing. I had spoken with a representative from UNCF, and you would not believe that they actually told me they had money left on the table, that they were desperate looking for students because they just didn't have the applications for students, had not been applying because of the pandemic. And that is ludicrous to me. The money is free, it's on the table. All you have to do is do an application, maybe an essay, but you definitely want to look at other options. Parents, your employers sometimes offer tuition assistance and different things like that. So those are other options. And even students, if you work, I have a few students who work at McDonald's. They get $5,000 a year as part of their scholarship program that they have for working there. So there are many, many options, and those are things that you kind of want to explore as you are plotting your journey, because the least amount of money that you have to borrow, the better off you'll be at the end. Okay, so when you're accepting your aid, every school is a little bit different in terms of how you have to accept your aid, but the college will provide you instructions on how to go about doing that. Again, we already talked about the fact that most community colleges do not automatically offer loans. If you need them, you will need to contact an aid administrator to kind of find out what you need to do for that. And you do want to read the terms and conditions for accepting aid and respond by the published deadline. For instance, this year we're offering a program for students who are within a certain radius of the institution, but there are terms that the student has to meet in order to continue receiving that, and there's deadlines associated with that as well. And you want to be aware again of payment deadlines so that your classes are not lost. You would not believe how many students lose their classes because they've ignored their emails about how much money they owe, or they haven't done all of the steps that need to be taken in order to accept their aid so that their charges are actually covered. Okay, Andrew?
That's the same for housing. Housing was there to make sure you meet your deadline so you don't lose your housing. And I just want to point out, I saw a misspelled word here. So when you go over online websites, it should be creditable, not creditable, credible, not creditable. My mistake. I do know how to spell.
Oh, okay, I see. Creditable. I got you. Okay, so again, you do want to complete additional scholarship applications through the college. For instance, most schools do have some scholarships that they offer. So you want to check with those with your institution to find out how to go about doing that. Departments, we have like our band, our choir, we have our CSET, which is our computer science, engineering, technology departments, offer all kinds of money. So you want to also, explore those options. Your high school counselor may be able to point you to scholarships. Many high schools actually offer scholarships to students who graduate. So that's something that you want to explore. And I already mentioned the fact that you can look at your employers, businesses, charitable organizations, the church. Most churches have some sort of fund for the members who have students who are in college or graduating. Any clubs and civic organizations that you're a member of, and credible online websites. Okay. And you want to just make sure that you beware of scams. You want to vet anyone if they're asking you for personal information, or if they're asking you to pay. Don't even click on it, okay? Because if they're guaranteeing you that, oh, if you do this, you'll definitely get that, those are definitely scams you want to avoid. And then also most colleges have payment plan options that are interest free. So if you are able to make payments and you can do that usually on a monthly basis, and you pay it off at the end of the semester, guess what? You don't owe anything. So that is another option that you have in terms of financing school. Okay. And finally, some helpful resources. Your college financial aid webpage, the FAFSA studentaid.gov, chev.edu, net price calculator, college navigator. All of these resources will offer you a little bit something a little bit different in terms of looking at the schools as you're making your decisions, looking at the costs and being able to compare them. As well as your scholarship tools. These are some really good ones down here at the bottom, FastWeb, Peterson. These are all credible ones that have been around for many, many years that you are able to utilize to search for scholarships. And these are search engines, by the way. So you can put in information and they'll tell you, okay, based on what you typed in, here are some scholarships that you may be interested in. Okay.
That was good. And I'll say college financial aid web pages, they're going to have scholarships, up there, maybe from funding they've received from previous students, things like that. So make sure you go to their pages. That'll also help you know what programs they participate in. If you've been questioning whether or not they offer federal aid or state aid, then they're usually going to have pages on that, like federal aid, tabs that you can click on and see what they offer. So go there before you go anywhere else. I would say go to the college financial aid web pages to see what they offer their students. And I think that's it. Let me see. Do we have any other questions? I don't see any other questions. No. Any other comments? One question, well, I get a lot is there any type of wait list for financial aid? Like, what happens if you miss the priority filing deadline? What should the student do in that case?
Still file the FAFSA, absolutely, because you're still going to be awarded the federal aid that you're eligible for. And then if schools figure or find out, maybe once they get to the start of the semester, okay, these students didn't show up for whatever reason, there may be some state aid or some institutional funds that become available.
Right.
So even if the day after the priority deadline, you're like, oh man, I missed it, still do it because you don't know what funds might become available that you could access.
Right.
Right.
I definitely concur with Andrew on that one. I know very often in our institution, we have, where we upfront award certain students, freshmen in particular, and they decide they're not coming, and we end up with a nice pool of money at the end of drop ad where we can then disseminate it to other students. For us, we typically encourage students to just ask and say, hey, is there anything else that may be available? And typically there's no physical wait list, but we do consider other students for additional aid as it comes available.
Right. So make sure you file your FAFSA, and if you're selected for verification, you need to make sure you complete the entire process. So if that happens, there won't be any holdups or, reasons for you not to get those funds. But I mean, I can imagine that I know it happened, for this past fall, and it's going to probably happen again where students think they're going to go, to a certain school, and then plans change. I saw a lot of students who were going to go to that 4-year and then decided to, stay home and do community college, for example. And so what that means is that additional funds might become available, but they don't know that right now because the students haven't made their decisions.
Right.
And so right now they're still holding on to those funds. I mean, it's still an estimate, but still, they're still holding on to those funds. So just do everything you need to do, even if you miss the priority filing deadline, to make sure that if the money becomes available, that you, can get those funds and there won't be a holdup.
Yeah. And trust me, most schools want to spend that money. I mean, we get a certain allotment of funds, particularly from the state and other institutions, other places, and we want to spend it. We need to spend the money. Okay. So we're not trying to hold on to it. We want to spend it. So, so definitely, keep that in mind as you move forward, that, just because you missed the priority deadline does not necessarily mean that you've been X'd out of receiving any additional aid.
Right. Any other tips or tricks? No, I'm just kidding. Tips or tricks you can give?
So,
any inside? Just kidding. Okay, yeah, I feel like you did good. If you guys have any more questions, you can put them in the chat or Q&A, and we'll try to answer those for you. But if you have specific questions, always feel free to contact the College Financial Aid Office for assistance. All right, I'm going to stay on till 7:10. I think it's like 3 minutes.
I do see one question that I'm not sure that we answered. The question was, can community colleges send award letters out earlier?
Andrew, I answered that one.
Oh, you did?
That's from Miriam. She's
you answered.
Works with the FAFSA. Yeah, she works with the FAFSA. I just suggested she contact DCCS on that one. I was trying to, Miriam, if you're still on, I was trying to see if I could find the contact there on their website. But anyway.
All right. Awesome.
Okay.
I actually see another question on here. Did you already answer the question about the Parent Plus loan?
Nope. Go ahead. I didn't see that one.
Okay. So do you accept the Parent Plus loans through the College of University? Answer to that is yes. Typically, and each school is different. However, but you do have to apply for it on the studentaid.gov website. You do have to have your own login. You can't use your student's login. It has to be yours. So you would use your FSA ID and password, the same one that you use to sign your student's FAFSA. And then you just notify, you can put which school you're wanting to send the funds to. For our school, it doesn't require you to accept it. Once you do the application, that's, as far as we're concerned, that's your acceptance. Other schools, I've worked at other schools that actually front load plus, and you do have to accept it and you have to apply. So it really does vary from school to school, but yes, you would do that at the school level in terms of, you know, the acceptance piece of it, but you do have to apply for it on studentaid.gov.
And their repayment terms are different from federal student loans repayment.
That's correct.
You start that sooner, right?
Actually, it depends on the school. Like for instance, we started ours in this year will be the first time that we've actually done ours in April. Typically, we don't start accepting until May 1st, but this year we're doing it as early as April. You have to keep in mind that when you do the application, it is credit based. So therefore, the credit decision is only good for 180 days. So if you do it too soon, your credit decision may expire before the funds are processed and dispersed. So you want to be kind of careful about when you decide to do that. But so it depends on the school. Like I said, you know, the other schools that I've worked at, they didn't open before May. Like I said, this year is the first time that we've done ours as early as April.
Right. But I was trying to mention the repayment terms on that. You would start paying back that Parent Plus loan sooner than.
Yes.
Okay. And that's, you would start paying that back while the student is still in school, correct? How much time do you get? Okay.
Typically, the payments will begin 30 days after the disbursement. Okay. However, you do have options. You can defer the payment until the student graduates. You can defer the interest. So you do have a few options. And as you do the application, you'll have a choice in terms of what you want to do. So if you decide not to make payment and you decide to defer until the student graduates, then it is going to accumulate interest the same way the unsubsidized loan will. So from disbursement, interest will begin to accumulate on that loan. So again, that's something you may want to be very careful about. I encourage parents, if they're able to make payment, even if they defer the interest, to make the payment on the principal or something, so that their debt load won't be as high at the end of the student's college career.
Yeah, that was good. Okay, well, I think that's it. Let me check the Q&A. Oh, there we go. Hold on. What is considered middle income? Oh, okay. You're talking about, Al, you're referring to G3. What is it?
Get
gosh.
Get a job,
give back. A job and give back.
Yeah.
And you said, what is middle income? I'm gonna send you a link that has some Q&A that we got from the Virginia Community College System, so you can read up on that, and it'll talk about the income. And I think there was one more. At NSU, the computer science scholarships will be included in the letter of offering.
So that is going to depend on the department and how quickly they get those over to the financial aid office, actually. And really quite often your award notification or award letter will go out without it, because we typically don't get those award notices from the departments until the summertime, most of the time. So it's probably not going to be right away. You'll probably get an award letter first. You may get notified by the department that you're going to get a scholarship from them, and it probably won't show up until later on your awards. And I actually am the one who enters those, so.
Okay, and that's it. Now we can all eat dinner if we haven't already.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Pause on this, I think. I'm sorry. I gotta figure out how to toss this back to you, Tierney.
Oh, you're fine. It's fine.
Okay.
You can just end the call. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hope you got some good information. And I do actually, I have one more question from Sherry Kelly.
Okay.
I don't know if she's still on. Sherry, I unmuted you if you want to ask your question.
Oh, oops, hold on a sec.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I think you already answered my question.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you. Everybody have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.